We drove from the other side of Bangalore, which is like far. And so I apologize for that behalf. I know some people have gone to eat and fill their good stomachs. When they come back, they will join us. And I have a couple housekeeping rules because they're more for me than for you. I speak really fast, so I apologize in advance. That's just my dialect at this point. As you probably know, my accent is kind of funny. That's because I'm not from natively from Bangalore. I'm from a very cold place called Canada. Not the language, the country, right? Actually, me, Ariel are both from Toronto. This is my good friend Sal, who is from the United States. Everyone else that's with me is from Bangalore, Kirtan, my two fabulous Nvest Studio companions, and then the superstar teacher, Shiba. And so we are so delighted that you would give us this time. We hope that this is going to be an engaging experience. So yeah, a couple of things. I speak fast, my English sounds funny, and number three, I use a lot of jargon. Jargon is like slang, but like technical slang I'll use, just assuming you'll understand it, like computer science terminology. So I'm assuming since you are engineers, you'll understand all of that, but if you don't, just tell me to repeat myself in plain English, and I will. Apart from that, we're gonna have a really fun time. I don't know how much time I have. All I want you to let me know is when I only have 10 minutes left, so I'll wrap it up. Apart from that, just let me go kind of off the wind. I will start with a quick video of an introduction, I guess, to what we've done here in Bangalore in Jayanagar, which we've built a R&D facility for blockchain research and development. I'll play that video, and then I'll begin the I don't know what to call it, the expose.
Hi, I'm Manasa, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to our new space here. Nvest is a budding research and development startup on blockchain with a paradigm shift in finance and technology. So the next time you stop by, hop in for networking, and you'll be glad you did.
Okay, so how many of you guys are first-year students? No one? Great. All last years? Thank God. Okay, so all of you guys have either graduated or are about to graduate, is that correct? All computer science. Fabulous, fabulous. I see we have a majority females and a minority males. Yes, that tends to be the case, but not over there. Over there, you find all comp sci would be males, right? Unbelievable. So are you guys all natively from Bangalore? Or are you guys, some of you from outer state studying here? Okay, who's from Karnataka natively? Like half. And everyone else? Timbuktu. There we go, all the foreigners. The reason I asked that is because I want to get a feel for what type of engagement that you guys have wanted from your computer science careers before I talk about what I believe to be the future of computer science. And I guess the last question I'll ask you is, how many of you guys have, well, how many of you have heard of the blockchain? Nobody. How many of you guys have heard about cryptocurrency? 1, 2, 3, just news? How many of you guys have bought cryptocurrency? Sal, you bought some in your day? So, we're going to be talking about something that most of you guys don't have that much purview on. So the only goal that I have by the end of today is that you go home and research every single thing I said. Because I'm going to make several big claims, and I want you to substantiate them. As engineers, I think the duty of any good engineer is to substantiate hypothesis. So I'm going to be standing here and talking a bunch of concepts. I want you to go explore them. There's no way I can cover the breadth of what the blockchain is going to do for computer science in 1 hour or whatever, how much ever time I have. And there's no way that you guys will be introduced to such an important topic and will be able to comprehend everything off the cuff. So the only thing I hope to do is really to inspire investigation. And I think that should be done pretty seamlessly considering how important this actually is. Lovely. So, if you've never heard of the blockchain but you've heard of cryptocurrency, can someone tell me what they think is cryptocurrency? Just yell it out, don't worry. Any word matters. Bitcoin. What do you guys think? Yell something about Bitcoin. Anything about Bitcoin. What have you heard? Say it again. Who said that? Wait, say it again. Oh, no one said anything? Maybe I'm just hearing things? You said that, no? Say anything. What do you guys think about Bitcoin? It's digital? Volatile? Anything else? You guys have not heard anything. I find that difficult to believe considering all the news about it. Okay, so if that's the case, let me start from the very jump. Bitcoin was the first example of cryptographic ledgers that could be used over multiple computing machines to secure a network. Modern cryptography has been propagated for the better half of the last century, meaning there has been developments in cryptography that have led to Bitcoin, but in 2008, Bitcoin was put together in a way that exploited the highest levels of cryptography and achieved what we would call mass consensus. Now that's a really long-winded way of saying this. Someone took the same security systems that ensure multiple logins on multiple websites, Facebook, online banks, Google, whatever it so may be, and they wanted to see if they can create a monetary system that would secure a single currency across unlimited amounts of computers. So although that might sound like a bunch of irrelevant concepts, let's try to make it very practical. And the first half of this is going to be me trying to explain what is the significance of the blockchain. And then the second half is going to be me explaining why, if you are an engineer in 2020, and you are graduating without knowledge about this technology, you are essentially the same as a lot of my friends that graduated in 1999 from engineering schools and did not know what the internet was. This is a more consequential innovation than the internet. This is a more important field of computer science than most things that you guys do hear about, such as IoT and artificial intelligence, etc. All those are very important, but the blockchain will have more significant impact on each of your careers than you have any idea. And the fact of the matter is, nobody, not just you, knows anything about it. So it is very rare to find someone in India or any country really that has competence in this subject. But my warning, I hope to come across as warning, is if you take advantage of it, if you go home and learn to program on blockchain-based programming languages, your IT career will be dramatically different than if you didn't. And I can give you case study after case study for that. Consider this someone from the future who has come back to give you this information, that the greatest innovation in computer science is happening right now, and nobody is talking about it. Very few people know how to program in it. So let's talk about why it's so important, or what it actually is. You guys know how central I apologize if I talk a little slowly when it comes to some topics. I just want to make sure you understand it. How does a traditional consensus system work from a database perspective? In other words, the modern database structure went from having everything local. Let's say you had a company like Facebook. Facebook would used to have all of its servers in its own building. And then every time you called on Facebook.com or you were interacting with Facebook.com, it would be calling a local server and then it would interact with you. Meaning, Facebook had all the control in the world to be able to manipulate, change, upgrade, downgrade, whatever it is, their servers. Then over the last 10 years, we've migrated from local servers to cloud computing. So if you guys are familiar with that terminology, Amazon, AWS, Microsoft, Azure, etc. And what cloud computing really said is, hey, all the millions of companies in the world, millions of hospitals, education facilities, instead of having your servers in your building, leave them with us. Leave them at AWS data center. Leave them at Google's data center. And so what that did is, it went from giving the enterprise the ability to obfuscate its server to now putting complete power in the likes of Amazon and Microsoft and Google. So that has been the evolution of modern databases. Virtualization, really. What Bitcoin did, and Bitcoin is underpinned by this technology called the blockchain, which is a really comical term, I think, but anyway, it's called the blockchain. Bitcoin said, what if we could achieve consensus on a distributed network? What if the server that underpinned Bitcoin did not need to be monitored and authorized by a single entity? What if we could perform all of the validations for this network across potentially thousands of computers? Or millions of computers? What would that mean? Well, what that would mean practically is that any one person could not change that network. Any one person could not alter that database set, that transactional set. And does that sound like something that would be useful in all circumstances? No. Because in the case of social networking, you do want one person to kind of control all of that. You want Facebook or Instagram to take care of all of that. And you don't really care if Facebook changes the date of your picture from today to yesterday. You'd much rather have quick databases when it comes to social networking. But when it came to money, I'm pretty sure all of you would want to know that nobody is tampering with the money. Or, let me be clear, nobody is tampering with your money. And I assure you that none of you have ever thought about that question until I just said it. If I asked you how much rupees is sitting in your bank, you would tell me a number. And if I asked you, can anyone tamper with that? What would you say? No. Let me enlighten you on how false that is. Not only is it false from a computer science perspective, because whether you're with HDFC or you're with Paytm or you're with Bank of America or you're with JP Morgan Chase, they can of course tamper with it. That's what they do. They get hacked all the time. If they couldn't tamper, they wouldn't be able to get hacked. If they couldn't alternate it themselves, they wouldn't be able to expose it. So let's just say you trust them enough, which you shouldn't, but let's say you do. My following question to you is, who tampers with the actual currency? Forget about the amount of money, like you have 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees. Now I'm asking about the value of your currency. In India, it's Indian rupees. In America, it's US dollars. In Europe, it's European euros. Japan, Japanese yen. Have you ever thought who controls the underpinnings, the infrastructure of that currency? In other words, why is a rupee valuable? And I will wait, because it doesn't matter if I ask this question to computer science students or economics students or people that are graduating from business degrees, nobody will give me a proper answer. Because it is not something you think about. Because you hope or you assume that the value of your currency is underpinned by something secure. What do you think it's underpinned by? Gold? Oh man, you're living in the past. You're living in one era that is long gone. Once upon a time, and by once upon a time, in India, actually the modern currency was always fiat, but in the British Empire, early Victorian age, they had this idea that all currency should be backed by gold. That made the concept the gold standard for the British pound. The United States then adopted that, the gold standard for the US dollar, which meant for every currency note, there is gold sitting in the treasury. Well, that's pretty good. That means that at any given time, you can take your currency to the central bank and they should be able to give you gold, because gold is finite. Gold is governed by thermodynamics. It means I cannot just whip up gold. Whereas paper currency is not so finite. You don't know how much rupees there are in circulation. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows how much dollars there are in circulation. The Treasury can take a shot and say there is approximately 19 trillion US dollars in circulation, but nobody knows that. Even them. They don't know how much they've printed. They don't know how much they've issued. Impossible. They don't, forget about counterfeits. I'm just talking about raw currency. So the idea that it would have to be backed by gold was a fabulous idea. But you know the issue with backed by gold? As a government, that means I need to have gold. And I can't just make more money. And if I needed to repay debts, I can't just make more money. And if I needed to stimulate the economy, I can't just make more money, because I can't just make more gold. So what did every single country, not one, every single country decide to do in the 20th century? Right after World War II, they said, to hell with gold. Let's go fiat. Fiat, F-I-A-T, not the car. I know that's so sad that we keep picking on fiat the car. No, fiat is paper money. Fiat currency is paper money. Fiat currency essentially means the currency is backed by the government, not by gold, by the government. If you look at a rupee or a dollar, it will say, what will it say? Backed by the strength, in every country it's a little bit different, but backed by the strength of the US Treasury, backed by the strength of Reserve Bank of India, whatever. So what does that mean if it's backed by the government? Sounds safe. Does sound safe. But is it safe? Well, again, let me implore you to ask this question. You guys are teachers? Great. When you were growing up, how much was milk? Like to buy one carton of milk? 20 rupees? How much is one carton of milk today? 40 rupees? Oh, it's 20 to 40 in about what, 10 years you would say? 10, 15 years, 20 years? When your grandparents were growing up, how much do you think milk was? 1, 2, 3 rupees. In the United States, when my parents were pumping gas in Canada, gas like gas for your car, it was literally cents for a liter. Now you can't get it, or in the United States, it would be gallon, be a little bit more expensive. You cannot get, it's $1, $3 per liter per gas. Why? Why do things get more expensive? The same thing. Milk is not a scarce resource. Trust me, there's an infinite amount of milk that will ever be produced. So there's no reason for it to become more expensive. It's not that milk has become more expensive. It's that your currency has become less valuable. That's not the case just in India. And milk is more expensive everywhere. It's more expensive everything gets more expensive. Why? Inflation. Have you heard this term? If you've watched the news, you've heard this term. Inflation. If you go Google this, you'll hear so many economists and politicians, tax employees, whatever, they'll always talk about this word, inflation. If you're a doctor, you'll know inflammation. And that's what I think of inflation. It'll give you inflammation. Inflation is a nonsensical term. I'll explain what inflation means. To an economist, inflation means yesterday, one milk is 1 rupee. Today, one milk is going to cost you 1.5 rupees, whatever the rate of inflation is for that product. But why do we accept that your currency becomes less valuable? How can a currency become less valuable if it's backed by the government? Now logic, guys, you guys are all very Boolean logic here. The only way currency becomes less valuable is when they print more. Think about this. The Indian economy has grown every single year since 1991, and yet the currency is less valuable. The US economy has grown every single year since World War II, and somehow the currency is less valuable. That is not because the economy is not growing. It's becoming, the Indian economy is very productive, very, very fast growing actually, but the currency is less valuable because they can't stop printing money. Do you know why they can't stop printing money? I'll tell you why. It's not because they're bad, smart, good, nothing. If you give someone the ability to print money, they will always print money. It is an easy solution to fix everyone's problems. So that's why you had a gold standard. Because anybody, any king, prime minister, president, monarch, if you give them the ability to print money, even if they're the best in the world, they will print it. And so, let me explain to you how dangerous inflation is. If you have 10,000 rupees in your bank account today, and let's say you don't make any more money, ever, in 10 years, according to modern RBI inflation projections, you will have half the money. You will still have 10,000 rupees, but you'll be able to buy half the stuff in 10 years. Which means, in theory, imagine you had 10,000 rupees, you were walking down the street, and I came and I took half of it, and I ran away. Would you like me very much? No. You would actually call me a thief, or you'd call the police, or you'd figure out how to get your money back. Well, that's exactly what occurs with inflation. I'm not saying that someone is bad and you're, like, that's not the case. It's a broken system, to be honest. It has nothing to do with, it's every government is doing the same thing. There's no comparison. But that is the effects of inflation. And although I didn't want to make this an economics lesson, it's important that you guys understand that, because out of that pain is where Satoshi Nakamoto, by the way, Satoshi Nakamoto is the inventor of Bitcoin. Nobody knows who he is. That's his online name, Satoshi Nakamoto. He's like a invisible person. Everyone has guessed, who the hell is this guy? Is he an American? Is he a Chinese guy? Is he a girl? Is he a boy? Is he old? Is he young? Nobody knows. Trust me, they've wasted so much time and money trying to find this out. It's really irrelevant who he is. It's completely irrelevant. You don't know who created the rupee, you don't know who created the dollar, and you don't know who created Bitcoin. I actually know who created the dollar, Sir Alexander Hamilton, but most people don't know that. But the reality of the situation, it's irrelevant who he is. All that we do know is that he did have substantial knowledge in cryptography. Because if you go and read his thesis papers, if you go and read the underpinnings of the blockchain, you can tell that this is someone that has worked in computer science and cryptography for decades. Because some of the papers that he was quoting in that original paper were from like 1971, 1979. So I mean, this guy has studied modern cryptographic infrastructure for a very long time. And what did he say in 2008? Well, no, he didn't say anything because no one knows who he is. He just published this open source protocol. He said, okay, well, everything online, oh no, forget about online, everything digital, everything that's governed by bits. You guys know what bits are, right? Zeros, ones. Everything that's governed by bits is abundant. Everything governed by matter is scarce. Let me explain that in simple terms. This table is scarce because I cannot just copy and paste. But if I had a picture of this table on my computer, that is not scarce, that's highly abundant, because I can just copy and paste a million times. Does this make sense? That's the difference between analog and digital. Analog is governed by the laws of matter, and digital is governed by nothing except your computing processing power and data and storage. So he said, oh my goodness, if we move all money online, then not only is it just going to be fiat, where you can just print more money, this is going to become pandemonium. Because now you could just make more money without even wasting the couple rupees it takes to print money. You can just issue currency, which is what's happening now with the issuance of like digital dollars, digital rupees, etc. So what he said is, how can you make, this is the innovation, how can you make a digital file scarce? Emails are not scarce. You can send millions of emails. Any type of storage is not scarce. It's basically free at this point. I mean, of course, there's the cost of raw storage, but I mean, at this point, it's virtually free. How could you make digital scarce? And this took 50 years to solve. And that is the blockchain. The blockchain is a mechanism to solve that problem. Because as soon as you can make something digital scarce, you can now make it immutable. Immutable means no one can tamper. Or if someone tampers, everybody knows. And now let's talk, technical. How he did it is he used something called SHA-256. SHA-256 is a cryptographic hash that is used by every single HTTPS encryption scheme. If you're running any type of time you type in a password into any online browser, it's being encrypted using SHA-256. The ability to crack this is almost virtually impossible. That's why no one tries to decrypt passwords. There's other ways of hacking your accounts, and it's never to just figure out how to decrypt your password. It's actually easier to guess your password as a hacker than it is to try to decrypt it. The algorithm that underpins SHA-256 is like 1 over some 17 trillion. It's impossible, right? And so he took that. He's like, hey, everyone in the world already uses this. Every company, it's amazing. How about we take this and we run a random equation? Well, once you know that SHA-256 is basically impossible to guess, because it's like trying to guess 1 over a couple trillion units, he said, okay, well, nobody can fake guessing SHA-256. It's impossible. Well, it's possible, but it's very hard. Why don't we require, this is what the idea of the blockchain is, why don't we require a computer to perform mathematical equations and run SHA-256 millions of times until they come up with an answer? Why that's important is because that's a unilateral verification mechanism. If I say, hey, this is the SHA-256 algorithm, and he comes back to me with the answer, what I know about him, I don't know how he did it, but I know he spent a lot of computing energy. Does that make sense? To be able to find the answer to this equation would require hours of very powerful computation. Just continuing, your computer would have to run and run and run and run and continue running through the millions and millions of results. So he can come back to me now and say, Sharpan, I got the answer. And I don't know anything about him. I don't know his age. I don't know what his computer does. I don't know anything. But I do know that he spent a lot of computing power. And so that became the consensus algorithm. In Bitcoin or in blockchain, you would call that proof of work. Because what he proved to me is that he did work. I can't prove anything else about him, but I can prove that he ran, and work in this sense is obviously just computation. I can prove that he ran immense amount of computing power to come and solve this problem. And so then Satoshi Nakamoto took that concept and said, anybody who wants to become a validator on this network just has to continuously solve this very advanced math problem. a hash. Keep coming with the hash. And now that became the entry point for being a node in the network. Let's talk about Bitcoin, but it could be used for any network. But in the case of Bitcoin, being a node means you're committing computing power. And you are solving this problem, which means you're burning electricity and money trying to solve this problem. And because you are validating nodes, you now get to authorize all the transactions in Bitcoin. And that is how Bitcoin was formed. Anybody who wants to become a node can become a node. Anywhere, all you need is a computer. No qualifications required except proof of work. You could do it from your phone. You could do it from the most powerful computer in Google's data center. You can do it, if you're really smart, on hand. No, you can't. It's impossible. I've tried to start, and then I realized, yeah, it's not going anywhere. What it meant now is everybody is a validator, and no single person, no single entity has control over the database. Millions of people do. Obviously, when he started it, not millions of people, only like 10 people did. And then it grew because there's no entry barrier. And today, there is more computing power allocated to solving this dumb math problem than 100 times all of Google's computing resources. There is more electricity being burned trying to solve this dumb math problem than half of Western Europe consumes. There was so much electricity being burned solving this problem that governments in provinces said you cannot do it anymore because you're just wasting electricity. And that is how many people today are validating the Bitcoin network. Do we know who they are? We have no clue. It could be some people in this room, could be my little brother, could be Reserve Bank of India. Nobody knows. Impossible to find out. But we do know that they're burning electricity. Why is that important? Now come back to my first question. Right now, current monetary system, whenever they feel like printing money, they're going to print money. Oh, I'll give you a little example to understand how ridiculous that is, apart from the fact that inflation steals all your money. Apart from that, do you know who the Prime Minister of India is? In 2 seconds, Narendra Modi came to all of your heads. I didn't even need to ask anything further. If I said in the United States, who's the President of the United States? Donald Trump. 1 second, not even a second, he would appear in your head because you are so acquainted with your elected officials, right? Okay, who's the chairman of RBI? I'll wait. And in the United States, who is the president of the Federal Reserve? I'll wait. I will give $10 US to anyone who can answer the question in India. Obviously, if you just Google it, that doesn't count. Exactly. You have no idea. In the United States, no clue who it is. I know who they are. In the what? In the US? It used to be Janet Yellen, but not anymore. Janet Yellen was the last female chairman, Fred, yeah. Right now it's Jerome Powell. Yeah. In the United States in India it used to be, I believe his name was man, his name escapes me. It's double R. Very smart guy. And now it's Letty. Anyway, the reason I'm telling you that is because the guy that controls, or the girl, that controls the printing of money, you have no idea who they are. They're not hiding. You just don't care. And yet, Mr. Narendra Modi, who really doesn't do that much to affect your life, presidents and prime ministers don't do that much to affect people's lives. Just whether you like them or not, they have to pass bills. Just remember that. The best thing they can do is go to parliament and pass a bill which is going to take forever to get cleared. Any country. You guys know so much about them. But the person that controls the monetary supply, you have no idea. He's not elected because he's assigned by the sitting president or prime minister. You have no idea who he is. You couldn't care less. And yet, you always complain about money. Which is just hilarious. That is how little you know about the circulation of your currency. And in Bitcoin, or if you don't like Bitcoin, it could be another currency, anything governed by the blockchain, it doesn't matter because there's nobody running it. There's not one person who can make unilateral decisions. There's not even an organization that can make unilateral decisions. Everyone is a single node. So what does that mean? It's immutable. Now let's speak technically how it works. Okay, so you're trying to prevent double spend. Remember, the point of cryptography is to prevent digital assets from becoming abundant. Because the issue is, if you have $1 and it's on your computer, you don't want me to just copy and paste the $1 and send it to him and send it to her, and now you have 2 for the price of 1. That doesn't work. That money doesn't work like that. So how do you prevent that from happening? That's where the cryptographic, that's where the SHA-250 comes into place. Because essentially now when I'm SHORUPAN, I'm an entity, I'm an endpoint on the Bitcoin network, and I'm saying I want to send 1 Bitcoin to Sal. Okay, how can anyone validate if I have that? That's where all of the nodes would come into play. They're basically fighting, by solving the math problem, to who can solve this first. Whoever solves that math problem, which is virtually impossible to solve without burning electricity, gets to validate my transaction. If you validate my transaction, the Bitcoin network rewards you with some Bitcoin. That's why you guys are doing it. By the way, that's why so many people are validator nodes, because they get paid in Bitcoin for solving these problems. So you're burning electricity, but then you're earning revenue. Bitcoin has made silicon fabrication a huge business because now crazy people that want to mine Bitcoin. By the way, the word mine is just another way for saying validate. It's another slang, right? Mining Bitcoin. You know where that came from? Mining gold. Mining Bitcoin is like mining gold. That's the idea. That's the joke. Now, mining Bitcoin became so profitable for these validators who are solving these equations that people started to go out and buy application-specific circuits, ASICs, where they said, the only thing I want to do is mine Bitcoin because it's just so profitable. And that's when NVIDIA, if you know what that company is, NVIDIA makes very powerful gaming computers, makes the underpinning chips. NVIDIA, AMD, another chip manufacturer, said, holy smokes. Forget about making gaming computers. This is like fabricating ASICs, application-specific circuits, to run these SHA-256 algorithms is the most profitable thing in the world. And this has become a huge factory industry. There are places, it's usually in cold countries. Why? If you're running these type of computers, it gets really hot. So you would never build these Bitcoin mining farms in a hot country. You'd find free air condition, as I call it. Try to go to the coldest place, North India, North China, Western Europe, Russia, Northern Canada. These places have free air condition. It's always cold. And there, you can just go Google it, go YouTube it, don't believe me. There are just aisles and aisles of factories of Bitcoin mining computers, and they're doing nothing but solving highly, highly advanced cryptography questions to participate in the validation of Bitcoin, which me and Sal use to send money everywhere across the world anonymously without any restrictions. This was a science project. You know what a science project is? Yeah, like in grade 8th standard, sorry, what you guys call it. In 8th standard, you guys used to do science projects. Your teacher's like, hey, why don't you go create something cool and come back and present it to the class? So if you're a really creative person, you're going to go back home and you're like, think, oh man, what can I create? I'm going to create a volcano. That's like the popular one in the US. Or I'm going to create like this video game. I'm going to create whatever, right? You come and you present it, and your teacher's like, you know, out of the whole class, 1 will be really good. So your teacher's like, wow, that one's pretty cool. Maybe you should do something with that one day. Maybe you should build a company one day, publish the software, write a paper. And you never take that seriously. Right? You just said, well, I did this to get a good mark, and it's pretty cool. That's what I call Bitcoin. It was supposed to be a science project. It was supposed to go nowhere. It wasn't this type of advancement, this type of paradigm shift in computing never should have happened. Satoshi Nakamoto is not a powerful person. Nobody knows who he is and nobody cares. He just published open source code in 2008 in some random messaging room on the internet, some open source like hippie group. And over the last 10 years, this concept has consumed the world. Not as much as it will in the next 10 years, but it's consumed the world. Every single bank, including in India, every government, including in India, is now watching Bitcoin, watching how it works, seeing if they can copy it, trying to ban it, trying to legalize it, trying to create regulations, trying to create other architectures. Every Fortune 500 company, whether it's IBM or Microsoft or Amazon or Facebook or whoever, is now investing hundreds of millions of dollars into the propagation of blockchain development. Because what they understood is this crazy guy, Satoshi Nakamoto, has created a way of forget about Bitcoin. It's the consensus algorithm that is immutable, that you can now use not just for currency. He used it for currency. But since then, developers all over the world have used the same consensus algorithm to build unlimited amounts of apps. That was so dramatic. You know what they say, right? Like sometimes you just got it. Yeah, good thing I don't need a mic, nor do I need really any assistance when it comes to this. As long as the camera's rolling, we're good. So I know the light's kind of dim, but don't worry, it's actually kind of cool. Let there be light. Let there be a goddess of light. So developers like you guys, and I literally mean like you guys, you can call them young people, some people call them kids, some people call them hackers, some people call them working at the biggest companies, have built blockchain apps. They don't even call them apps, they call them dApps, decentralized applications. And they've published these dApps, JavaScript, C++, whatever. They've tried it in every capacity possible. Can we create protocols like Bitcoin to validate healthcare? Can we create protocols like Bitcoin to validate other currencies? Can we create protocols like Bitcoin to validate debt markets, securities markets, passports, visas, elections? And they're trying it all. Literally, hundreds of thousands of developers all over the world, open source. You guys know how crazy the open source guys are, right? All open source. It is unprecedented what's happening now in computer science. Unprecedented. And so why am I here today apart to deliver this sermon? I'm here today to enlighten you guys to one concept. I don't know if this is going to now work, or maybe we just need to hit this back on. Oh, there we go. Or before that, before I tell you why I'm here, like I said, the only thing I wanted to do today was to inspire you guys to go home and do more research. Everything I said, assume it's a lie, and go home and validate it. And I assure you, I haven't even scratched the surface. I haven't even started to talk about what this does for computer science or economics or app development or anything. Just go home and you guys do your research and see what comes up in the bowels of the internet. But what I will say is, ignore this at your own peril. Many people, do you remember COBOL? Who here remembers COBOL? K-O-B-A-L, COBOL. Exactly. Between 1980 and 2000, every engineering school in the world taught that programming language, COBOL. They thought this was going to be the programming language that defined enterprise. This was going to be the programming language that defined the way the world works. Guess how many people use COBOL today? 0.00. And you have learned what? Java, C, C++. I don't know. Most Indian universities teach those three languages. Maybe, and the assumption is, wait, everyone in the world uses Java. Maybe not so. Well, we already know JavaScript is more powerful than all of the rudimentary languages. But what I would recommend is taking a look at the future, because you're the ones that are going to have to live with it, not me. And learning the right programming language. Can you imagine the guy that learned JavaScript in like early 2000s? Like that guy is like, unlike the people that learned the web languages as early as the web came out, where their careers are. Most people are now learning web languages. Imagine like being an expert on Objective-C as soon as the iPhone came out. Forget about just from like how inspiring that would be. Think about how much money you would have made. Think about where your career would have been. And the only reason I know that is because I hire blockchain developers every day and I have to overpay for every single one of them. Every single one of them. I don't think I've not hired a blockchain developer, which, you know what that means? If you come into my office, I think we have like 120 now. If you come into my office and you know how to program in the blockchain, I probably won't even take an interview with you because you're just hired. Because there's so few. That's just not me. Just go tonight and do another experiment. Type in blockchain jobs in Bangalore, and you won't see small companies like mine. You'll see Oracle, and Bank of America, and American Express. Because all of them are craving, fiending over blockchain developers, like looking at some nice like masala or something. They just want to consume it. There's so few people that know how to do it. It's the most valuable skill. I do believe very much in artificial intelligence. It's either going to be one of these two things. You either need to be highly proficient in artificial intelligence or highly proficient in blockchain, or else there's nothing left in IT. Give it a couple years. And it's so simple to learn. This is the best part. Learning how to program on the blockchain is not complicated at all. So let me now tell you about myself. Let me brag about myself for the next 5. I'm joking. I hate talking about myself. I try to avoid it. But just to show you why I'm here, in 2000 and something, it feels like ages ago now. In December of 2017, me and my co-founder, who's not here, my co-founder's an old gentleman, Mr. Warren Carson. Both of us are natively from Toronto, Canada, which is a really cold place up in somewhere up in the Western Hemisphere. And we started to get really interested in Bitcoin because we had been angel investors and we had just watched how cryptocurrency had evolved. And we said, you know what? We need to start a Bitcoin enterprise, cryptocurrency enterprise that would essentially help other people hold cryptocurrency. So we were ridiculous enough to start Nvest Bank. And Nvest Bank is the world's first cryptocurrency banking institution with physical branches, headquartered Canada. And if you want to know how crazy we actually are, I'll show you. Because what we decided to do is actually build an entire bank. Which couldn't be more ludicrous. Oh my goodness, no internet. Dun 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 dun. Anyway, long story short, I said, hey, you know what cryptocurrency needs? Something like RBI. I mean, not like RBI, something like Bank of America or SBI. Physical branches where people can come and learn about it because nobody knows anything about it. That was the great idea. It sounds so bad in hindsight, now that I think about it. But it was an interesting concept, and people really loved the idea, to be honest. They thought it was the coolest thing, because you guys have never heard about Bitcoin before. You've never seen anything about Bitcoin before. If anything, you just heard misinformation. However, if there was a local branch, you would probably just walk in and shoot the shits and be like, hey, what is this? And so that's what we did in Canada, and in now expanding that to the United Kingdom. Is it connecting? You can go through it on your own peril. Investbank.com. It's an online banking software. You can hold crypto. You can hold digital currency. You can hold fiat. It's like Paytm. Just think about it like Paytm, right? So that made us relatively popular. And then in 2018, 2018, you know what happened to Bitcoin? I'll explain something actually. Yeah. Okay, so in 2018, in 2017, in January, Bitcoin was worth $900 US. Because this is what he said, right? The price goes up and down a lot. And in January of 2017, Bitcoin was worth $900 US. How much in rupees? 80 by 900 is what? 80 by 900? My God. Sorry, I haven't slept in a long time. 63? 63,000, right? Yeah. So roughly, yeah, that's about correct. Maybe a little bit less. Actually, correct. Let's say 70,000 rupees for one Bitcoin in the beginning of 2018. Sorry, 17. By the end of 17, 1 year, 11 months, Bitcoin was worth 20,000 US. It had gone up 20 times in 11 months. Do you know what happens when something goes up 20 times in 11 months? Everybody starts to pay attention. Everybody. That year, is when all the governments in the world said, holy smokes, this is not just a science project, this is a new financial asset. We have to pay attention. That's the year that most IT companies said, holy smokes, this is going to be colossal, bigger than the internet, because the price went up 20 times. That's bananas. Then, just like anything that goes up, must come down. Absolutely. The only thing that grows to the sky are trees, is what they say in finance. So, in 2018, it went from $20,000 to what, 4,000? It got for 3,500, yeah, all the way down. It dropped by the magnitude of about $16,000, which is like 80% of its commercial value. And then everyone said, whoa, that's a lot of money that just went down the drain. We're talking about billions and billions of dollars when you talk about collective assets, right? And so people were like, they didn't understand it. They were very curious. At this time, we had already launched Invest Bank, and I said, holy smokes, everyone is so scared now because the price just came down, and they're willing to sell. That's just a common term in economics. Anytime price comes down, if price of real estate in Bangalore starts to collapse, everyone gets scared and they sell, which is the opposite of what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to buy when something is cheap. But trust me, no one is so rational that they do that. So everyone started to sell their cryptocurrencies, and me and Warren said, fantastic, let's buy them. And so we bought everything we could get our hands on. And that's when we launched the Invest Group, Invest.com. And the Invest Group is essentially the parent company for Invest Bank. And it's comprised of these 4 divisions. Long story short, we just started acquiring startups, companies in the crypto space because people wanted to sell them. And we built this like nice little cool portfolio of companies, about 23 to be specific. And then we came to India. In August of 2018, I landed in India for the first time in my life. And I'd traveled a lot, so it was really shocking that I'd never come here before. And my parents are from Sri Lanka. Do you guys know where that is? It's a little island very close to here. It's only like maybe a 2-hour flight. My parents were born there, and then they immigrated. So coming back here, I came to India August 2016. It was just me and one guy from Bangalore that I'd hired. And we sat in an office like the size of like 2 of these squares, and we said, my goodness, my company had sent me here to essentially hire 5 developers. That was my mandate. It said hire 5 developers because our operations in the UK, where we had our development company, needed 5 more developers. So I said, sure, boss, I'll do it. And I land, and in the span of 2 months, I could not leave, nor could I get enough of this idea that there are so many engineers in India that don't know about the blockchain. Nor do you guys really know that much about artificial intelligence, but I'm more concerned about blockchain. And I said, oh my goodness, what if we could create a process where we trained all of these developers to learn to program in programming languages like Solidity and virtual Ethereum, et cetera, because they already know most of the concrete skills. Adding one additional virtualized programming language is so simple, but your income would go through the roof and their hireability would skyrocket because so few people know it. And nowhere in the world, because I had been everywhere, had a concentration of engineering talent that I could have trained. And so I went back and I said, guys, I'm not hiring 5 people, I'll hire 50. And that's what I did. And I launched the Invest Campus, which is now what you saw in that video at the beginning, which is an end-to-end incubation facility for cryptocurrency. It's by far the largest one in India because there's no other one in India. So Invest Campus is the largest incubation facility in India, where we hire all the developers that we can get our hands on, and all the companies that we invest in overseas, like Invest Bank, like all the ones, they work for them building these incredible products. So that was the idea. So we couldn't get enough, so we said we need to also build a training institute on the first floor. I would see if this was actually finished. I don't. They keep sending me these videos that I don't know are actually done. No. I might have deleted it. Invest Help, Christmas, Invest Help, Life at Invest. Oh, here we go. Yeah, this was, so the first video that you saw, if you remember the first video, that's my top floor. So that's where all the actual developers work. On the first floor, we built Nvest Labs, which is the training institute. where we take people that don't know how to program in blockchain and make them Ethereum certified. Ethereum is the other, against Bitcoin is the second protocol that you should actually learn more about. Bitcoin is just the first one, there's thousands. But Ethereum became the most dominant one, and we make them Ethereum certified developers. This is the building of Nvest Labs. Yeah, so that is essentially, we just launched it, Nvest Labs this year, which is a fully certified training academy for Ethereum blockchain development. I had built similar ones in Toronto where you essentially partner with universities, offer this type of end-to-end certification, make sure that the developer knows how to. The base language for all of this is JavaScript. So if you don't know JavaScript, then you do an introduction to JavaScript, and then you learn all of the blockchain languages on top. So we have an end-to-end certification for that. And right now we're partnering with universities across the city, and hope very soon. Actually, like half the team right now is not here. They're in like Andhra Pradesh because they're doing the same thing there. And that's what it is. Long story short, that's what we do. But what we do is not as important as what you do. Because what I implore you to do more than anything else is get invested. Not money. I don't want you guys to put a single rupee into any of this. I need you guys to invest your intellect. And trust me, it will be the single greatest decision you ever did, because now you have something where you have unlimited capacity to develop these protocols, these networks, these apps. And you are amongst the 0.001% of developers. And I'm not even saying that like it's an exaggeration. It's actually that bad. It's 0.001%. There's 1.5 million computer science graduates in India every year. And most of them will get very minimal occupations if they find them. But why? Because it's all the same. In IT, it's all about what's next, not what was yesterday. Because what was yesterday is being automated. Yes or no? What's next is the blockchain. Whether you want to work for Nvest or IBM or Government of India, because they're hiring for the same job, don't worry. All the government jobs will open up blockchain. Imagine all the former RBI jobs are going to become blockchain jobs. Just think about how crazy that is. All the former tax department jobs are now just going to become, over the next decade, cryptography jobs, digital assets. India is already way, way faster than the United States as it pertains to just digital payments, like Paytm and Google Pay. Do you think that this government or the next government will not have the fantastic idea, hey, what's the best way to get rid of all corruption? Oh, get rid of cash. And let's move everything to, they won't do an open blockchain like Bitcoin, they'll do a closed blockchain, which is another type of programming language, which you can absolutely learn at Nvest Labs and lots of other places. To be honest, guys, you can learn how to program in the blockchain on YouTube. There's lots of videos that you can go on Udemy and learn it. What we offer is like a 60-hour intense, like industry-specific training program with Shiba and like lots of other experts. But if you want to just, learn it, just start learning it, just pick it up on YouTube. But trust me when I say this, this is eating. Mark Andreessen was one of the best investors of all time. He was investing in Facebook, Google, all this. He used to say software is eating the world. Let me stand correct this statement. Cryptography is going to eat the world. Everything is going to come down to security. Everything. Absolutely everything. So thank you guys so much for your time. I appreciate it. I hope you guys got out of it. I will stay for questions, but I appreciate all of your time. Yes, start the very sad applause. Any questions, by the way? Oh, they're handing out papers. And if you guys are near Jaynagar, come and check us out. Nvest Labs, dun 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 dun. Courses, JavaScript, Ethereum, developer, certified, level 1. No, yeah, absolutely. Let me actually speak on that. So, hey guys, sorry, she just asked me a really good question. I apologize for not speaking on it. It was about internships, and I forgot that I'm speaking to a bunch of students, so my apologies. So, the reality of the situation is we hire tons of interns, and majority of our best blockchain developers started off as interns, and the reason that works really well for both parties is because usually the newly learned blockchain developer doesn't know much, so letting them work as an intern on projects that we have is a fabulous way of getting acquainted with it. But don't take my advice, ask Kirtan, because Kirtan was the first person I hired as an intern. So he was employee number 2 in India. And he was hired out of what school? What? BIT, Bangalore Institute of Technology. And he was just had graduated, same computer science degree. And I had hired him, and he didn't know obviously didn't know much blockchain development, but he came and he worked as an intern at the old campus before we got the new one, and he got hands-on experience, and now after his internship was finished, he is one of our lead blockchain developers. So if you have requirements for interns or are interested in that, write that down on that paper. We will take as many interns as possible. The only thing is you do need an interest significant interest in the technology, and the ability to learn quickly. Learn very quickly. But you could talk to him about that because that's a very important point. Internships. Good? Yeah, mention it if that's your desire. My HR team or Shiba's team will call you no matter what you put on there. So then you can talk to them. Ask if you have more questions, ask them. Definitely they'll call you and you can talk to them.
It was good to know about upcoming technology. We'll gain new knowledge about learning the blockchain. It was a good experience.
Session is very most interesting. We didn't even have idea about blockchain. Because of him, he gave him a good response. While what about blockchain means making sure that students will not be knowing nowadays because we are learned only Java, C++ and all. But about blockchain we didn't even had idea. Now little bit idea we have what is blockchain and what are the advantages of it. That's it. Thank you.